Hello, everyone. It's me again. I'm back. It's another episode of the podcast. And today I want to talk about lots of random stuff, as usual. But I kind of want to talk about relationships today, again, because I've thought about it a lot. And I was thinking about how the thing that determines whether a relationship lasts or doesn't is really interesting. And it's not that easy to predict. And that includes both friendships and romantic relationships and whatever type of relationship you have, even business relationships. Like, it's really interesting to try to analyze what makes things last. And I read a lot of different books on that topic. I think there was one famous book that analyzed couples that lasted longer and like marriages that lasted longer. And the predictor was that people were really good at managing conflict. That is, that if they had some sort of conflict, they would always, how do I say this? Like, it was never a deal breaker. They always knew that at the end of the day, no matter how much of a fight they have, they're always going to make things up. And they didn't hold grudges against each other because they kind of knew somewhere in the back of their mind that it doesn't make sense and it's not what they want to do. So I have a cup of tea here with me. So that's nice. And I have my old guitar in the back. For those of you who are watching, so I think that's kind of interesting that this is something that is not always easy to notice, because I think when we see a couple that is arguing all the time, we start thinking that, oh, like they're not going to last because they're arguing all the time. But in reality, the people that do not have conflicts in a relationship, that means they just like didn't have that huge conflict yet. And once they get it, they're probably not going to get through it and they're going to split, right? But the people that are really committed to each other, they know how to deal with conflicts, and they kind of like, they know that this is their person. Even if they're gonna have a conflict and have a fight about something, they're gonna figure it out. And that's why I think it's kind of counterintuitive, because you look at a lot of marriages, and a lot of marriages can be complicated and people can have fights all the time, but in the same time they're still together. I mean, there's obviously like a degree to which it's okay if you're just constantly having this toxic, like really, really bad fights, and probably like you're just in a toxic relationship. But all I'm trying to say is that sometimes conflicts are actually good for any type of relationship. Then I was also thinking about, in general, what I have noticed about friendships that lasted in my life or lasted in my friend's life, and relationships of the people that I know, what lasted, wouldn't last. Which I think is weird to say, taking into account my age and all of that, but I still think like it's interesting to see, because you know what, even if I feel like I became aware of myself, like self-aware to some degree as a person, not just like aware that I exist in the world, but like aware that I am a human being that makes decisions and my decisions affect my life, you know what I mean, in that sort of way. I think I became to that extent self-aware around like 11 years old, I think. And from that age, I can totally say that like the things I was doing, the relationships, friendships that I was in, I was aware that this is what I'm doing to myself. Like, of course, I didn't know whether they were good for me or bad for me, because just didn't have enough experience to kind of know what anything means. But in a way, I think I just don't like the narrative that if the person is like 20 years old or like super young, people can completely neglect their whole experience before. But like, you are that person, adults are not any different from you. They're just like grown up kids. And I understand it's much easier to be an adult, because I would say that as older I get, the easier it feels to just exist, because I do not have so many questions, because already so many questions are kind of answered for me. And that is so much easier to exist just in the world where you already know at least something to some extent. You understand what that means, and you understand who you are and what you value and where you're going. And that is so much, it's just helpful, because you don't have that constant like feeling of, not restlessness, but I would say I used to feel extremely lost within existence. Like I was just like, I'm not aware of what is like, I had so many questions about everything and I never got the answers until I answered these questions for myself, right? And I answered them through experience and learning about life and the world. And so it's kind of like inevitable and you're going to have to experience it either way. But all I'm trying to say is that even though I understand that being an adult is kind of, easier, but I wouldn't completely neglect my whole experience as a kid or as a teenager. I mean, I'm still a teenager, but like the teenager that is like young adult, 15 years old, because I believe that I actually feel a lot of compassion for that version, for these versions of me that were, you know, very insecure and very kind of like lost in the world. And sometimes I just needed help that I never got back in the days. And I think that it would just be unfair and very cruel to neglect those versions of me and be like, oh, I was just dumb. I was just like, no, I wasn't. I was growing and I was a little kid. And it's like my experiences are as valid as my experiences now. So maybe that happens with age as you grow up and you're like, oh, whatever. I made so many stupid decisions. But you know how people are in their 30s are like, well, my 20s, I was like just young. I didn't even know what I was doing. I guess you didn't know what you were doing, but that doesn't mean that these things don't matter. And so that's why I really, really don't like the narrative of like, oh, you just didn't have enough experience. Calm down. Calm down. Like I'm not like 2 years old. Okay. Um so what I was talking about is, yeah, what makes a relationship last? I think the one thing that I've noticed and kind of just analyzed is that in friendships, the thing that is going to predict whether you, well, okay, there's thing that can predict whether you're going to become friends with a certain person, and that is a sense of humor. Like if you have the same sense of humor, or at least like it's kind of similar, kind of like close together, chances of you getting there are super, like, I feel like it's almost as quick as this to understand whether you're going to be friends with someone when you just meet them based on the fact that whether you have the same sense of humor. And that is something that actually also makes friendship last, because I think a lot of friendships can have kind of um expiry dates because the people change, but as you change, your sense of humor changes. Like it's genuinely just that. It's not that deep. It's not like, oh, I changed as a person and I have like different goals. Like I think that is more towards like your partners and like romantic relationships or whatever it is. But when it comes to friends, like you don't really need to be similar to last. I actually noticed that people that are super completely different but have the same sense of humor is the perfect duo, a combination for a friendship. Because if you are too similar, you are probably going to become too close, and that may interfere with your ability to be just friends, or it may interfere with your ability to, have other friends, and like it just may not work out that well. But the best friendships that I've seen in my like around me and among people, and I have this thing when I notice people have a really great relationship, and I kind of like I don't envy, but I'm like, that's cool. Like that is something that I would like to have. Because there are different types of relationships, right? And what's interesting is that different people can have different relationships, but those relationships kind of don't even look like they kind of show those people. It's weird. Like some good, very interesting people may have very weird toxic relationships, and then some very like people that I don't personally like, and I think like, I don't know that person, but they may have relationships that I'm kind of like, damn, but you have a really good relationship like with that person, like you have such a great friendship, like you have such a great this or that, and I think my God, like that is cool. So what I've noticed is that if you are friends with someone and they are super different from you, like they have different sense of style, different values, well, not different values completely, but like different goals in life, different, completely different outlook on what they want to achieve, and nobody would like be like, oh, these two probably like are buddies. No, you'd be like, no, they're completely different. But then if they have the same sense of humor, bro, that's it. Like you are set up almost for life. This is the best friendship, because it's just so nice to see that you may, live in different countries, you may completely not see each other for 2 years, but this is the kind of person that you're gonna see again after years, and you're gonna just kick it off because you have the sense of humor, and it's so to the T, like kicking that. It's just weird. And also, having friends that are super different from you is actually extremely interesting and kind of, how do I say this? Like, it's so much more exciting because you can learn things from them that you don't learn by yourself, and you kind of grow up in different fields, and you can look at them grow and develop in their own field, and you are developing, growing in your field, and that is like, whoa, that's cool. Like, we are so different, but we are growing in our own ways, and we are becoming our different, like, separate but like very rich individuals, and I think that is amazing. Another thing that we may discuss is what does make a relationship last, and that is much more complicated in my opinion, even though friendships can be complicated, like that's for sure, especially if, like, if these are long-term friendships, like your best friends, whatever. But I also believe, like, as you get older, here's what I want to say. First of all, I don't think that it is okay that we put romantic relationships over our friendships. And there's this, like, there is a privilege of a romantic relationship over a friendship, which is stupid because friendships are as important as romantic relationships. You need friends. Like, not need, but like having friends is really great and it's important for your well-being as much as having a partner, if that's what you're looking for. So I believe that, like, please don't let undermine the value of friendships in your life. Don't do that. But another thing is that I feel like when you're a kid, a friendship can be the only thing you have when you do not have any relationships, and a lot of your like drama can happen in friendships. But once you get to the age where you want to have relationships and like being committed relationships in terms of like romantic relationships, you do not have the time for any drama in a friendship. Like, you're just like, no, I don't have the emotional capacity. Like, list, or maybe that's just me. Um, but I have this thing where I'm like, my friendships need to be as chill as possible. And if I see even a little, kind of sign of like disrespect, like not disrespect, but like if I feel like you're not treating me as a friend, like, that's it, bye. Like, I'm saying that in a sense of like, I don't want any drama in my relationships with friends. Frankly speaking, I should be looking the same way at romantic relationships, but I feel like it's much more complicated. And I guess it shouldn't be. It should be as easy in terms of like, you just know, like, you just feel safe and you don't have to question it and you don't have to be like, I don't know. But the problem is that there's a there's so many more things that are kind of taken into account when it comes to a romantic relationship, because what makes it last, who fucking knows? What makes it work, who fucking knows, right? It's still kind of a mystery, and I'm not even kidding. Like, scientists study that question, and a lot of people, and like, there are, as I said in the beginning, there's some theories, but we're still not sure. So here's my theory, which is based on no research whatsoever, just my personal experience. I feel like we all heard that, like, what actually makes relationship last is common goals and values. And if you don't have common goals and values, um, if you are attracted to each other or whatever it is, it's just not gonna be sufficient enough to enable the continuity of the relationship. And in my opinion, it kind of is the truth. Like, it is important because having common goals and common values is important, um, to kind of seeing where you want to go with life, right? And if it's a long term relationship, like, it, what's happening next? You know what I mean? But I also think that sometimes it's not enough. Like, you can have common values and common goals, and it's still not gonna work because, and you like, you may have the same sense of humor, saying whatever. Well, actually, what's interesting also, side note, that I think like almost common sense of humor or common interests or common whatever it is, like, you don't actually need to have any similarities with your partner for things to work, because I've seen so many couples in my life that are completely different people, and they have completely different sense of humor, and like, I don't even know how they get along, but they get along perfectly. And I think what works here and what actually makes a relationship last is not your common values or common goals or common interests or common hobbies, because that fuck that shit. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter in reality. What makes a relationship last is your expectations about what a relationship looks like. It's like your idea of how you want to be treated and how you want to treat your partner. And if these things align, such a high chance it's going to work, even if you may be completely different people or you may have completely different goals in about life in general. Like, let's imagine, I don't know, like one there's a couple, typical heterosexual couple, and like the guy wants to, I don't know, become a nurse, and a girl wants to be a ballerina. I don't know. And they have like completely different interests, and they have literally nothing in common. They listen to different music, they watch different movies. They have literally, like, you look at them like they cannot get along. But the guy has an expectation of what his like dream girlfriend would do, or like, I don't know, wife, whatever it is. And if the girl has an expectation and their expectations align, this can absolutely work, and it's going to work perfectly. Because what really matters in a partner when it comes to what makes a relationship last is not the person that you're with, but the way they treat you and the way they want to be treated, and whether you can do this or not. And if your expectations of like treatment in a relationship are different, then it's just not going to work. Even if you can be like perfect match, you can be like, you have the same goals, you have like, bro, like same sense of humor, like it's like fucking soulmates, match in a different universe. Like, it could all be the case, but if your expectations and your idea of what a relationship looks like are different, it's just not gonna work. You may think that, like, what am I talking about? Like, bro, everybody wants the same treatment. Like, be nice, be kind, give them flowers. Not really, because there's so many details, and like, especially first of all, like, what do you even see as a committed relationship? Like, first question. Second, how do you understand love? Like, how do you understand that? Because every single person understands it differently in a reality. And another question is, how do you everybody wants different types of treatment, and everybody shows love in different ways. And you may find the perfect person for you, but if they're going to show you love in a way that for you is like it's not love, and if the way you show love is for that person like not love at all, like I don't get it, then it's not going to work. So this is kind of the predictor that I found, but I think the reason why this is a really good predictor is because it's kind of based on attachment styles, and it's really because how the person's going to treat you in a relationship is very much dependent on their attachment style, and whether they are secure or they're anxious or are they avoidant, like what is happening, right? And the way you solve conflicts also really depends on your attachment style. So all of it ultimately depends on the attachment style. So it all really depends on the attachment style. If you didn't know, by the way, there are four major attachment styles, and there's like this main theory about relationships. Um, there's a secure, which is like you feel good with or without a partner, and you're just confident, and it's just okay. Anxious is when you're scared of losing a partner. Avoidant is when you are scared of getting too close to a person, and you're just like as you get close to someone, you start freaking out. And the fourth one is disorganized or anxious avoidant, which is like you oscillate between those two that are not secure. This is a very simplified explanation. If you want to know more, like read a book, search it up online. It's there. But I think it's really interesting because for me, I don't know personally if like knowing the attachment style itself and like assigning it to yourself or someone else is really that helpful. But I think reading about those different attachment styles helped me to see what a good relationship looks like. Because not well, good, I mean healthy and secure. And I think because there's this whole narrative about like red flags and like how this person is toxic or you're toxic a little bit. But I hate labels. I hate putting labels on myself or on anybody else because it's just really limiting. And ultimately, we are all people. Like, we're just people. We just exist. And we make decisions, and sometimes we regret them, and sometimes we're like, oh, okay, like, that it is what it is. You cannot really kind of um blame someone for the way they acted, or just be like, oh, he's just like anxious avoidance, so that explains it. Like, sure, but why is this the case? Everybody, like, you can put this on like as a label, but a label can mean too many things. It can be something that is defining you, or it's something that is just temporary. So that's really, really important to look up to it and see whether this is something that is your identity, or if this is just like a temporary situation. That's why I really don't like labels, because they all have different kind of like time frames. Labels have different time frames, and that's why I really don't like them. But let me go back a little bit to the book I was reading, and yeah, there's a book on these attachment styles. I forgot how it's called, but it's there online, and it's really, what helped me is to see what a healthy relationship looks like, and kind of like look at that. There was like description, literal description of like what are the actions that anxious people do or avoidant people do, and why did it happen in the first place? How do you become that? What is happening? It's really interesting to see, if you've never been in a healthy relationship, which is like, it's hard to just like straight away end up in a healthy relationship if you're not aware, if you're secure yourself. And secure is actually a really good word, because it basically means you're secure within yourself. You're not insecure. You do not feel a lack of something. You do not feel like you need someone to feel fulfilled in life. Like, if you feel fulfilled in life by yourself, and with or without it, you're good, that is when you're secure and confident within yourself. It doesn't mean that you are like, because if you're like, oh, you know what, I don't need anyone. Like, I'm so good by myself. Like, ew, relationships suck. You're being avoidant. If you cannot be without a partner and just like, I need someone all the time, then obviously you're anxious. But if you're just like okay, like neutral, just like fine, then you're secure. And I congratulate you, because not so many people are secure. But it's interesting to read about the relationship that's supposed to look healthy, and not supposed, like, this is how a healthy relationship looks like. I'd be like, wow, that's how it should have been. That's how it should have been. I'm sorry. Well, not how it should have been. Every relationship is, kind of important in itself, and we all learn lessons. But all I'm trying to say is that it's really hard to kind of see the red flags when you're yourself a little bit of a red flag, and it's really hard to, yeah, this is my point. And you can be a red flag in a different way, you know like, you can be yourself, and a red flag doesn't mean you're a bad person. Like, a red flag just means something is really, really unhealthy. And there, like, obviously there are degrees, and you can blame people that hurt you in the past forever, but it's not gonna really change the fact you were in a relationship that was like this. And no relationship that ends badly is, you know was good and then it suddenly ended badly. Like, no, 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 there was some issues in the first place that you didn't notice, and the fact that you didn't notice shows that there's something within you that made you block it out. So work on that. Like, it's hard to do this when you feel hurt and when it's just like fresh. But over the course of time it gets easier, and you understand where you should have worked on yourself. And there, it's not bad. Like, it's just life, and life happens, and it is what it is. I don't know how I got there. Anyway, so what makes a relationship last? I don't really know, but probably maybe if you have the same expectations about each other. And I said this is related to attachment styles, but I don't think it's fully even related to attachment styles. It's like the way we all have some sort of vision of what we want to have. We all have some sort of belief that this is our dream, the way I am treated, or what I'm giving the other person. There is a kind of a vision of a perfect relationship, but it's, well, not perfect in a sense. No, there's no perfect relationship, but I mean like your relationship, like what you want specifically, right? And that is something that is not that easy to figure out in the beginning because you may yourself not know what you want, right? Which is why it's really important and great to kind of study yourself and your needs and your wishes and your wants. But then also the other person may not know this, or it's really hard to even like figure that out in the beginning. And that's why I feel like a lot of people may think this is what they want, but then, oh, turns out it's not. And yeah, but also like, we all grow as we live. We grow before, during, and after the relationships. And it's kind of it's not like you always should aim to find a relationship that's gonna last. Like I think it's just it's just kind of useless to think that if something didn't last, then it didn't matter. If something didn't last, then it didn't, then you should just erase it from your memory, or that, that person was no one. Like, no, no. Everything mattered in itself. Like, it's including your friendships, and it's including any big influence that happened in your life. That is like, it's not only about relationships, like anything comes and goes. We all go through phases in life, and we all go through different periods in life. And if you're just going to erase and completely just delete, just be like, "Ugh, never happened." Every single thing that happens to you once you enter a new era of your life, that's never gonna be sustainable. What I like to do instead is I build up on it. I'm building my personality, right? I'm building me as a person as I live. And every single person that I like comes and goes through my life, every single experience, every single new interest, every single memory, every single, whatever. Because there are so many things that I did and they're in the past. I don't do them. I don't see them, but they are in my core. Some things that happened to me influenced me badly. And sometimes you have to fall apart, dig these things out of yourself, and build yourself back together. Erasing your whole fucking personality because of something that bad that happened, that ended a thing that you really liked, is just dumb. So that's not that's not my personal approach to things. Every single person that was in my life at some point, and maybe because of me, maybe because of some other reasons, it's just we don't talk, we don't know each other. Like I don't know where that person is, I don't know who they're talking to, like I don't know anything about it. That mattered for the past version of me. You know what I mean? And that past version of me lives inside of me, and it matters. That past version of me is not me anymore, right? Because I changed and I'm a completely different person, and I'm older and I'm like wiser and I'm all that. But at the same time, that little girl lives in me, and I cherish her and I fucking value her, and I think she's valid. She was valid for making those decisions, and I'll never be like, why would she do that? I'll never be like, why was she so dumb? I'll never be like, oh, like none of that matters. No, it fucking matters. It matters, and it's important. And I value every single thing that I experience personally, the bad and the good. The bad and the good. And of course, it sucked sometimes. Like not even a little bit. Like it was really fucking hard. But you eventually grow up and you eventually realize that it helped you to become a better person. Eventually it happens. And this is the only way to integrate it into your memory, into kind of a part of you, put it in a box and be like, okay, interesting. So, as much as I wonder what makes relationships last, and as much as we want to have, those long-term relationships and friendships that last a lifetime, and the next guy you date is going to be your husband, whatever. We all can wish for this, but it's usually not the case. And it's also completely fine. Like, because I don't want to live my life in a fear of losing a person. I don't want to leave my life in a fear of getting heartbroken, or in a fear of like, oh, maybe these people are just here for some time and then they're gonna like, like, live my life. Yeah, they will, and it's okay, and it's fine, and I'm grateful for what I have now, And it it has taken me a really, really, really long time to get to this position and to this mindset, because I used to hold grudges and I used to very much, hold on to the past. And kind of getting here was a long journey, but I'm extremely grateful for it. And yeah, all I'm trying to say is that mm, I guess if you're wondering how to make any relationship last, is in friendships, as I said, like look for the person who has the same sense of humor. Always gonna list. Look for in romantic relationships, look for the person that has the same expectations of a romantic relationship as you do. Like if your expectation is getting flowers every single day and getting spoiled and going on trips, this is your expectation. If your expectation is sitting at home every day and like playing Netflix and chill and I don't know, just like there are so many different expectations of what a relationship looks like and what is it that you do together. That is really what matters the most. But then also I kind of want to say that like you can talk about relationships in that sort of impersonal way that is like, oh, this is what's gonna make it last and this is what's not gonna make it. But eventually, as I said, we all really care about the person we meet, and I don't think you can fully avoid the situation of things not working out, whether it's friendships, whether it's relationships, whether it's, you know, whatever it is you're doing in life. Even like your career, your every single day, what you're doing is who you are. But then that may change tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow you're gonna wake up, you're like, hate my friends, hate myself, hate like what I'm doing, I hate it all. I mean, if that's what you're experiencing, probably something is wrong. But all I'm trying to say is that like it is possible and it's not a disaster. It's not a disaster. And trust me, you can rebuild yourself and you can start from the ground up. It happened billions of times on the planet Earth. People did that, and you can too. So don't worry. Be happy. Yeah, positivity. Either way, I'm extremely grateful for your um, watch or stream, whatever, wherever you are right now. By the way, I have it on YouTube, I have it on Spotify, I have it on every single platform that has podcasts. I'm so glad that I'm finally making this in a video format because I think I've thought about it a lot. And it's like, dreams becoming reality. I don't know why I didn't do this before. Also, from now, I'm just going to mention the fact that besides being a podcaster, I'm also an artist. I'm a musical artist and I have my songs out. And I have one song out. My next single is actually going to come out pretty soon. Probably by the time this podcast is released, I'm already going to announce it somewhere. So subscribe to my Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to all of my platforms. There is a lot to come. A lot to come. I mean, guys, like a lot. You don't even. Thank you so much for the stream, for your time, and I hope you have a good day, a good week, a good month, or just a really really good life. And yeah, see you in the next one. Peace out.